Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, no, nobody can think of a single thing I've missed. I'll tell you what I did miss. I forgot to start the recording, so that's going to make me unpopular with everybody. Okay, all right. So, I should get somebody to remind me how to do that. Okay. So, these are the four common goals. So, can anybody answer to me, why so many people work so hard and honestly, they actually don't really ever achieve anything in particular? They don't achieve these things, and they don't really achieve anything in particular. Why would that be? Anybody want to take a guess?
Lack
Probably
of
No
because
vision and no clarity.
Yeah, thank you. So lack of a vision, right? Vision, or
lack of belief.
lack
and
of.
sometimes it's lack of. I don't think they know that they have a choice.
Oh, who said that? Who said that?
I, Paul,
Oh, Paul. Hello, Paul.
Paul.
You believe that people don't have a
Hi.
choice?
Well, they might not be aware that they have a choice.
Ah, that's a
Sure.
different thing. Yes.
Hmm.
So, can you give me an example? What do you mean? Could you expand on that for me?
Like, I know in a coaching call that I've had with you, Les, is that you asked me the question, could you just pack up your life and leave and go overseas right now? And I completely know that I could do that no matter what. And yes, I have a good job and it's well paid, but
Hmm.
I know that I could do that at any stage. And I think that there's a lot of people there that just think that, well, this is my life, that's what my family have done, and this is the path that I have. I just can't see that I have a choice to do anything else. So that's how I'd explain it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. And I see Manu's on the call. So Manu, I know, went and saw Arnold Schwarzenegger last week, and he had something very interesting to say about this. He said, I don't know if you're all standing up or sitting down at this point, but everybody just look down at the floor and see how far it is. Now, if you fall over, is it very far?
No.
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 That's the way Arnie sees it. Schwarzenegger sees it. He says he looks at the floor. That's as far as he can fall. That's as far as he can fall. And the only way he would fail is if he actually stayed down there. But he would. But when you get back up again, you're on the move and you don't fail. So if you think about that, the floor is as far as you can fall. And if you were to fall over today, and let's put that in the context of money, if you were to lose all of your money today, would you be starting at zero?
No.
No. What have you
I
got?
wouldn't call this zero.
Yeah, it's thank you, Jan. It's you don't start at zero, because what have you got now? What have you got that nobody can take away?
Experience, knowledge,
Your knowledge.
wisdom, whatever.
Wisdom,
Family.
contact,
Belief.
network.
Yeah.
So just imagine. Let me see.
Right.
Money. Imagine that Richard Branson woke up in your bed this morning. How would that be, Munyi?
The ladies are giggling.
So what I mean by that is Richard Branson didn't just wake up in your bed. He actually woke up in your body. In fact, when you looked in the mirror, you saw Richard Branson. So he woke up to your life. He woke up to your friends. He woke up with your bank account. He woke up with everything that you have. Now, how long do you think it would be before Richard Branson, that's his mind inside your body, how long would you think before Richard Branson could actually put some more money in your bank account?
A day or two.
Yeah, maybe an hour
I
or
think
two.
as soon as he walks out the door.
As soon as he wakes up and makes a phone call. Right? So why is that? Because he has the knowledge, the experience, the network, he can just go out that. So all we need to do is follow people who've got that same sense, who've got that same process of what we want to create, and just follow what they do. So you can never go back to zero. Isn't that pretty cool?
No.
So there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. We just fall over and we just pick ourselves back up again.
Yeah.
So you'll see that when I send you the link so you can watch Arnie talking. So it's pretty cool. So the difference is, and as Paul said quite rightly, is because people not aware, the difference is goals. People don't set goals towards their vision, or they don't do what they said they would do when they said they were going to do it. Okay? So the mindset is not to be busier. The mindset is to create a new way of life. Yep. And Thomas Edison, the very famous inventor, said, he was asked the secret behind his extraordinary success, and he said, the ability to apply your physical and mental abilities to one problem incessantly without growing weary. So let me guess for a moment. All of you are busy all day. Would I be right in saying that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
You do something all day long, don't you? So most people get up maybe 7 a.m. They go to bed at 11 p.m. That's 16 hours a day. And I'm sure all of you have been doing something in that 16 hours. Thomas Edison would say that the only trouble is that most people devote that 16 hours to a great many things, while I devote mine to only one. If they took the time in question and applied it to one object, they would succeed. The real secret of my personal effectiveness is my concentration of purpose. Isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute, into that diagram. But I want to look at this one right now. The question is, what are you doing with your 24 hours? Okay, in this case, some people are sleeping 10 hours, going to work in a job maybe they don't like for 12 hours, and then spending the last 2 hours watching television or having a drink at the pub or whatever. So everything is exchanged, the 12 drops for work, spend the 2 drops into watching television and investing nothing. Oops. So, or we could invest our time and have a little bit of learning in here. So we might have 2 drops spent, to relax. But, or actually, I'm not going to say relax, 2 drops spent, because relaxing is not spending, and 8 drops invested. And every little day, just doing something a little bit small in how to go. So our time is the second most critical element. And I think most of us are aware of that. Okay? Most of us are aware of that. Now, has anybody not seen this diagram before? Everybody seen it?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I have not.
Yes.
No.
Okay, so somebody there, who wasn't that? Paul, you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll talk more about this later, but this is where we're going. In fact, this is where we're going to talk about our wealth. So there'll be a whole thing on this, on the wealth dynamics. But essentially, when we're talking about finding who we are, this is a profile to find out where in this square you actually reside as your natural talent. And people over here are extroverts and they're people, and these people over here, like Manyi, are numbers people, and then we have creative people with their head in the clouds, and then we have people with their feet on the ground, different energies, and applying it. And that is really answers the first question of who you are. And then from there, we actually go to getting better and better at learning at who we are. So when I'm talking about investing later on, which is where we're headed for, it's going to be very important to see which part you play in the investment cycle, about which games you choose to play. And playing your game on your field, just imagine that's a soccer field you're looking at there, making sure you stay in your field. And in the middle, you can see V times L. So if you want to create wealth, you want to create value. And your value can only be created in one of two ways, either through innovation or timing. Innovation means you come up with a great idea or a product. Timing means you buy a house today hoping it's worth more tomorrow, or you buy a share today hoping it's worth more tomorrow. But value on its own doesn't necessarily give you success. In fact, in most cases, it won't. So most people have value, lots of value, but they forget about leverage. And leverage is where you need to either magnify the product or service. In other words, get people out there talking about it, advertising, whatever process that you're going to use, or you stick it out through a system. Like on Amazon.com, you might put your book on Amazon.com here, multiply it out that way, and at the same time, you might go and talk to Oprah Winfrey to magnify it out there. We'll talk much more about this later. But if you want to create wealth, this is the simple formula: value times leverage. Much, much more on that later. Okay, so the final part. What did I say? The three most important things: wealth, time, and
health.
Health. Okay, so how much of a part do you think health has to play on our getting rich?
Everything.
Little or lot?
A lot.
A lot. Okay,
Okay.
a lot. The health of your body and the health of your mind. Has anybody heard the term mind-body?
Yes.
Yes. Your body and mind are one. It's called the mind-body. And your mind-body is in turn at one with nature. Okay? So the health of the mind and the health of the body cannot be separated. So we must work with nature, not fight it. Otherwise, when we're fighting, we actually get succumb to stress and illness, as most of us are aware. So many of the things that we use, like chiropractic, aromatherapy, osteopathy, all of those things are really methods to try and get the chemistry of the mind and the body to grow together. Without it, we'll find that much of our life is a struggle. And a lot of the diseases come from this area: allergies, asthma, skin disease, hypertension, all of those type of things. So very important that we actually talk about having a rest in how we do things and looking after ourselves. So does anybody know what Archimedes was famous for?
The Archimedes screw.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that too. So he was also, this one that I'm looking at was when he was resting, because I want to look at the mind and the body resting. And Archimedes was struggling with a complex problem to try and determine the relative mass of two objects, and he couldn't figure it out until he decided to relax and slip into a bath. And his subconscious mind was actually stimulated by the water that he displaced by his bathtub. And the famous story is that he actually ran down the street naked, crying out, "Eureka, Eureka!" He has the solution. Can anybody else think of any famous people that got world-changing ideas while they were resting?
Watson and Crick,
Who was that?
who found the structure of Watson and Crick, who found the structure of the DNA.
While he was resting?
They were they were sitting on the loo in a train.
Really, Jan? You're not telling a story here, are you?
Yeah. No, I'm not still. That's true.
That's
It's written
fantastic.
in their biography.
How do you spell their name? Sorry, I can you type it in the message? I've got to read that story.
Watson, W8. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you. What about Sir Isaac Newton? What was he doing?
It was under a tree.
Sitting under a tree and an apple fell on his head, remember? So we come up with gravity. What about Benjamin Franklin? What was he doing when he discovered something?
He's flying a kite, wasn't
Flying a kite. Well done. Who was that? Is that Nick?
Nick, yeah.
Well, hey Nick, welcome. So yeah, Benjamin Franklin was flying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What about Einstein? When he came up with the theory of relativity, does anybody know the story about that? He was bored in the classroom, and he started to just look at the clock and wonder what it would be like if he was standing on the clock hands, and then wondering what it would be like if the hands started going backwards, and that's how he came up with the theory of relativity. And Alan Greenspan, when he was running, he was the Fed chairman, he said that every day he would lie in his bathtub, and this is what he said: I visualize the whole world in my bathtub every day. Isn't that incredible?
Mm-hmm.
So, for all of you busy people out there, I want you to know that Napoleon Hill was not fibbing when he said, think and grow rich. Okay? So think and grow rich. You have to take time out to think. And in that thinking, you can create great wealth. It's not called be busy and grow rich. So, who agrees to take a little bit of time each day to just relax and think?
I agree.
You agree? Just one of you?
Yes,
The
so
rest
do
of you
I.
reckon?
No, Nick does too.
Nick agrees to rest. Look, seriously, guys, as we
Absolutely.
get more into the definitive stuff and away from the context, as we get more into the content, I'm going to show you I have made my greatest wealth doing very little at all. And when I work hard, maybe it's something I want to work hard with, I make the least amount of money. Okay, it's an illusion. The world is an illusion. Okay, so we'll get into that into certain stories. Now, time, money, health. Is it a problem with balance?
Yes.
That's the challenge. The challenge is to balance all three elements for a successful life, isn't it, Sandra?
Oh, she just had to go with the youngest daughter, I'm afraid. So.
No problem, Nick. No,
Yes, that's right.
no problem. But we all know. I could ask anybody that.
I'm here. I'm just looking after the little one.
Yeah, thanks. So hopefully she's feeling better. So the challenge is to balance all three elements for a successful life. And I was going to show you a little movie here. That's my, back then he was 6 years old, my 6-year-old son, my oldest son, riding his bike in the front of our house in Hong Kong. And that was the very first time that he was riding his bike. And, we wobble and everything until we get clear. And it's all about balance. So, and I'm sure many of you have heard The Secret for Success many times. And for some of you, maybe this thing about balance has made a tremendous difference in your life. But for most of us, hearing it is not just enough. So, once again, I'm leading you to where I want to take you in terms of doing something. But reading something is one thing. But being shown to do something is a whole new thing, isn't it? So do you remember as a child how you learnt to walk? I guess you don't remember.
No.
Yeah.
No, definitely
But
not.
of course we see children and they fall over and they stand back up and they fall over and stand back up or ride a bicycle. But was there somebody there to show you how to do that?
No.
No? Who was that?
Not
Yes, my
intentionally.
parents.
Yes.
Hopefully
Yes.
somebody was there to help you walk. So what would happen is
Yes.
the baby would see adults, grown-ups walking around and say, hey, it's something I'd like to do, right? And they would pick up and then people would walk with you and you'd hold their little hand and, all of those things. And eventually you could walk all by yourself and finally you were free. So those of you who are parents, have you noticed that once kids actually start to move, that the radius of action starts to increase?
Yes.
Right? And as they get on bikes, they go even further. You become more free. When I got my pilot's license, I managed to go even around the world. Right? So but somebody has to show us how to do that. That's the easiest way. Right? So when it comes to doing some of the investment work that we're going to be working on, then it's great to have somebody show you how to do that. Rather than,
Yes.
better than standing in front of the classroom and having someone tell you, got to do this, got to do this. Now, away you go, bye-bye, good luck, right? It's that part afterwards that people can show you through, which is pretty cool. Okay. Righto.
Good.
So you've got to be shown. It's a state of balance. It's a state of being. Can you be a little bit balanced, or do you have to actually be balanced? Let me ask you a better question.
Balance.
Yeah. You know, he's either going to ride this bike safely and not fall off, or he's going to wobble and fall off. But once he's got it, by the way, can everybody I'm talking to on the call here, can anybody not ride a bicycle? Okay, so nobody's responded. So everybody can ride a bike. Fantastic. Well done.
Yes.
When was the last time you rode a bicycle? Anybody like to
A few
share?
days ago.
Saturday.
When?
A few weeks ago.
Has anybody not ridden a bicycle for a very long time? No? Everybody's ridden a bicycle lately? How about you, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Have you ridden a bike lately? David, when was the last time you rode a bike? Oh, okay, you're all typing it in.
Oh, it would have been more than a year ago, I'd say.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. So more than a year ago. So you reckon you could still ride it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not worried about falling off?
Oh, no.
No.
No, pretty confident with that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah. So once we learn, we never forget, right? So what I'm getting at here is, once we learn, we're successful. Even if we lose something, we can always get it back. Even if we don't ride the bike for 20 years, we can get back on and ride that bike. So what I'm saying is that you're either successful or you're not. There's no in between. It's like passing or failing, black or white. There's no grey. It's like being pregnant. So the question is, are you successful? Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Do you wish to be more successful?
Yes.
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 Okay. Well, do you want success slow or do you want success fast?
Super fast.
Fast.
Oh, really?
Fast.
Are you sure?
Yes.
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 See,
Yes,
see,
definitely.
let me explain something here a little bit more. Has the word perturbation, can anybody define the word perturbation for me?
It's like when it's boiling and gets to the point where it kind of explodes.
Yeah, I mean, perturbation is standing in that heat, okay? It's like you've got to stand in the fire. Our good friend Blair Singer talks about perturbation all the time, okay? So perturbation, if you want success fast, you've got to perturbate. And when you perturbate, you stand in the fire. You get way out of your comfort zone. You stretch your mind far beyond what you think you're capable of. You walk along the hot coals, you break the arrows with your neck, whatever it is that you're going to do, because you are capable of all these amazing things, but you've got to get out beyond your mind. You've got to get beyond the fear, go skydiving, bungee jumping, whatever that is for you. That's one way of success. That's called perturbation. You want it fast? You can do it. You can go out and do it. What do you reckon? Are you all up for perturbation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? Well, okay.
Yes.
But you know what? I used to run a very big circle in network marketing, and very few people like standing in the heat. So there's another way of getting success.
Les, may I interrupt you? Do you think it's necessary to like it, or is it just necessary to do it?
You don't need to like it. In fact, most people don't like it. Okay.
Exactly.
So thank you, Jan. Yeah, you have to take your mind, grab hold of it and take your fear and throw it away and just go for it. And you can go out and do these amazing things, right? But it requires, as Sandra's got here, 100% willingness to learn, 100% willingness to change, as most of us would know from Kevin Trudeau, and having that commitment to go outside your comfort zone. But in my experience, when you think about where each of you are right now, what's stopping you from going much higher from where you are right now? Is there anything truly stopping you?
Well, it's inside.
Yeah, it's inside, right? Just inside. It's your mind. It's the comfort zone. There is, and that's okay. Perturbation is not for everybody. Okay? Perturbation is tough. There's another way. The other way is called can I? And that means constant and never-ending improvement. Constant and never-ending improvement is still a way to get success. It's a slower road, but it can actually be more fulfilling. So the question you've got to ask yourself is, do you want to perturbate, or do you want to do constant and never-ending improvement? So, could everybody write down in the message window, what is your preference? Perturbation or can I? Okay, good. Thank you. As I said, no one way is better than the other, but one way is quicker than the other. One will take a lot of perturbation takes a lot of courage. Perturbation takes a lot of courage, but so does constant never-ending improvement. So, and then Matt correctly pointed in here, finding a mentor who's doing exactly what you want to achieve, and that's a quicker way than going through perturbation. It's a quicker way than going through can I, and probably a more efficient way than going through perturbation is go and find somebody who's done exactly what it is you want to do and follow them and get them to mentor you. Okay, and so as I said, I'm going to mentor you through some of the processes, particularly in the investing side of things. Okay, right. So there are two elements that control every decision that you make, and we all know from T.R. Becker, thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions, leads to results. But the two things that create the quality of your life every day are your standards, the standards that you settle for, and your beliefs. So if you say you're going for constant never-ending improvement, you've got to set standards every day. You've got to set standards and you've got to achieve your goals. You've got to do those three things. You've got to be clear about what you want, setting the goal, and you've got to go out and get the information that's going to take you to those goals and meet the people that are going to help you take you to the goals. And then the third thing you've got to do is to do what you said you'd do when you said you were going to do it. So that's the whole thing in a nutshell. When we're talking about those three elements, time, energy or health, and money. We need to find the balance for those. We need to, and while we're finding that balance, and it's not really balance. Balance is actually a furphy word. It's more harmony. It's more about getting them in harmony as opposed to balance. Balance is not quite true. It's hard to get all those in balance, and it's hard to balance three things. What we're trying to do is to find the harmony. But to get what it is that we want to do, we need to be focused on what it is we want. And most of you would know, as I've been sharing this for a long time, is you have to be clear on your passion. What do you want? Okay, so if you want to be financially free, then you need to be focused on creating that passion and what that's going to be. So let me have a look and see if I've got time to share just a few moments. So I'm going to share a quick story that's going to lead us now into how I got started. So 13 years ago, I did a flight. I was flying for Singapore Airlines, and I did a long night flight to Zurich in Switzerland. And I love Zurich. It's a lovely spot. Has anybody been to Zurich before?
Yes.
Yeah, nice place, yes? Well, in this particular flight, it was all night. I was tired. I was flying with some people that were not very nice, so I didn't feel that they were at that point. And I got into Zurich. It was raining. It was cold. And I got into my hotel, and my hotel room was so small that when I went to the bathroom, I couldn't even, there wasn't even enough space to take my shirt off because I wanted to have a shower. I had to go back out by the bed, take my shirt off, and then go back into the bathroom to have a shower. And I didn't get that far because as I sort of went to the bed and I just flopped down on the bed and I went, my mind went, what am I doing here? And it was just a rhetorical question. I didn't really ask it. It just popped out. And in that process of popping out, I thought, that's an interesting question. Why am I here? So I caught it. I caught the question, and I immediately answered, because I wanted to fly a 747. It was one of my passions from when I was a little kid. I wanted to fly a 747. But then my mind wouldn't let me get away with that. And it said, well, yeah, but you've been flying a 747 for 10 years. What are you really doing here? And as I sat there and I started to think why I wasn't living in my hometown, my family and my friends, and what I was doing in Singapore and why I was flying this aeroplane, I actually started to come up with nothing at all. And at that time, after a lot of thinking, I realized that I was flying in Singapore Airlines for the money. So, has anybody ever taken a job just for the money?
Yes.
Yeah, many of us do, right? And then my next thought, was, that's interesting. I don't have any money. So all of my money went to pay my bills. And don't get me wrong, I had a great lifestyle. You know, I lived in a condo in Singapore and I had a ski boat and I'd go out water skiing with all those lovely Singapore Airlines girls and it was a good life. But I had no money. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have the choice to fly or not for Singapore Airlines? Wouldn't it be great, not that I particularly want to leave, but wouldn't it be great to have the choice to leave if I chose to? Because at that point, I had to do exactly what was on that roster. I had to pay my bills. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have the choice not to do that? And so what I did was I went and I found a book. Now this was in the year 2000. And I went and found a book that had been recently released in 1997. And the book was called, anybody know? Have I shared this story with any of you before?
Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, I wish I'd read that one first back then. But no, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Nice guess, Nanita. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Wow.
Okay? Now, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I would highly recommend that you read it. Now, you're not going to get anything about financial information from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay? But you're going to start to check the mindset. And then from that, reading that little book, I sat in that little hotel room in Zurich and I went, wow, I never thought about money like that before. I never thought like that. And so as I got in the airplane a few days later to fly back to Singapore, I opened up the newspaper on the flight to Singapore and blow me down, but there's an advertisement there that Robert Kiyosaki is coming to Singapore. And I went, that's amazing. You know what? It wasn't that amazing. He'd been coming to Singapore for like 3 or 4 years. So, has anybody not heard of the reticular activating system? The RAS?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No.
So, Nick, you've just got a new car, haven't you?
Correct.
Okay, so have you seen your type of car on the road a bit more than before you bought your car?
Yeah, okay, I know where you're coming from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have. Yes.
Yeah. Don't you go like you get a new car and you go, wow, that's just like my car. Oh, look, there's another one like my car.
That's right.
Or your kids do it, right? So because
Yeah.
we get millions of messages coming to our mind every day. And so from that, the brain has to filter out messages and information. So it only focuses on what it thinks that you need to know. And that's the reticular activating system.
Yeah.
So because I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, my reticular activating system this time was open to finding the advertisement. And I saw the ad and I went to the very first seminar in Singapore, the National Achievers Congress, year 2000. Okay? And some of you know what that means now, right? And I saw General Norman Schwarzkopf, and I found a few new mentors, Robert Kiyosaki and another guy by the name of Dolph DeRoos. And I went to this seminar, and there were 7,000 people at the seminar. I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. I'm there in my jeans and T-shirt, and there's all these people wearing suits and whatnot. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, this is amazing. I had my eyes opened, and I was entertained, and it's since been called edutainment. So what happened? I listened to these guys. They were all selling us into the programs that we now know that's what happens. They do the bookstore into the next programs. And Dolph DeRoos, I thought he was fantastic. So he was running a 3-day course, and I thought I didn't have time for a 3-day course. So I went straight to Brisbane, and I bought 3 apartments in 1 day. Wow. Without knowing a single thing about real estate. I didn't even have time for his course. So, does anybody remember what I said earlier on in Zurich? Now, don't forget, this is only weeks after I had that conversation with myself in Zurich. And remember, I said, what was the reason that I came up with while I was flying for Singapore Airlines?
Money.
Money. And do you remember what I said after I said, oh, I'm here for the money?
I have none.
I don't have any. So how the heck did I buy 3 apartments in 1 day? 2 weeks after I read the book.
Money.
Yeah.
Money.
I had no clue what I was doing. Right? I didn't know about body corporate fees or stamp duty or anything. I had, up until that point, I didn't own anything. I just had a good life. So I can tell you, in the next 2 years, I perturbated. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. But do you think I learned something about property?
Yes.
Yes.
I learned a lot about property. So I did my own real estate course. I still own all of those properties to this day, by the way. So I was very fortunate back then because you could buy property in any deal you bought in Brisbane 10 years ago. Anybody got an idea what property was like 14 or 13 years ago in Brisbane?
Cheap.
Unbelievably cheap. So today, those properties have all gone up. Some of those properties went from 100,000 to 1 million. Okay? So what I'm sharing with you is I was ignorant about what was happening. And through that ignorance, I was actually able to build up a multi-million-dollar property portfolio. And It's quite interesting that in the years after that, I wouldn't buy any property because I was too concerned about the dangers. So my great trickster had started to filter in. But I wanted to share with you the story about how I got into this game. And I also want to share with you, and I will be sharing with you over coming sessions because it's now 7 o'clock and it's time to close off some of the storytelling I've done today. But I think we're pretty much done with the context. So we'll be starting the content on the next webinar. Tony Robbins says something really interesting. He says that most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and grossly underestimate what they can do in 10. Now, 13 years ago, I didn't have a single penny in my bank account. I had no assets. And in the 13 years since doing the personal development courses and learning about investing, then I have multi-million dollars in assets. And I only share that with you because I want you to have the same experience. I want you to see that you can really have all this that you want, that you can go out and create the wealth that you want, which will give you the time to live your passion, live your talent. Now, I'll share with you, there's really two major ways to do this. One is you can go out now and live your passion and get rich doing what you love. Or, as some of you may know, I made a different declaration. My declaration was to get rich doing nothing at all, if I chose to. So, do you know what I mean by that when I say get rich doing nothing at all?
Yep.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
my property
You might call this passive income.
Yeah, passive income. Passive income. So there are two major ways. You can go out and build your business or your job. I'm not. We'll talk about the quadrants in future calls, but it doesn't matter which quadrant you're in. But if you want to create an incredible life, you need to be in the I quadrant. You need to be in a quadrant that creates passive income for you. And whether that's through property or other people's businesses or secret clubs, some of you will be aware of, whatever that is, okay, if we focus on creating that, it'll give you the joy to follow your passion, to follow who you are, which is my ultimate dream for every one of you who are on this call tonight, is to share those experiences so that you can go out and create your passive income. So, are there any questions that you have of me? I think that will probably close the context of this webinar series. And what I would really love is if you share with me what you really want to know, what you really want to focus on. My specialty is on passive income, particularly property, can be business. Business is a little bit more complicated. It might be outside the scope of this particular webinar series, but I probably will focus on property, and I'm doing the cash flow games to sort of support all of that, because that cash flow game that we can play together around the world on the web is extremely valuable, and I learned so much there about property buying from playing that game. So that will be continuing, and I think in the email that you got, there'll be a cash flow game again next week. And Monday, you'll have the chance to beat me this time. And any questions or any points that you actually want to see in the content of future webinars, you can either call it out or type it in the message window. I got a message here already from Jan, which is property is great. Now, I want to, if you don't mind, I'll take 60 seconds more to tell you a quick story about Robert Kiyosaki. His dad said, his rich dad said to go and buy or go and do a real estate course, a 3-day real estate course. Robert Kiyosaki at the time said, I'm not interested in real estate. Why would I want to do a real estate course? Can you believe Robert Kiyosaki said that? Okay. His rich dad replied, it's not about property. It's about using OPM to get rich. Other people's money to get rich.
Other people's money.
Other people's money. And what do banks like?
Other people's money.
Security.
Yeah, they love lending money. Why do they love lending money?
They earn money by lending.
Yeah, they earn money. And somebody else yelled out security. So what do they love to lend money on?
Securities.
Yeah, particularly?
Properties.
Property. Let me just specify that a little bit more. Let's see, which bank shall I use? Let's use a World Bank. HSBC. Could you imagine tomorrow you go into HSBC, go in your local branch in HSBC, whether it's in Berlin or Brisbane, and say to them, you know what, I love this bank. I really love HSBC. And I would love to buy shares in your company. So will you lend me $100,000 to buy shares in your company? What do you think they're going to say?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Okay. So, so property is a wonderful thing. And some of you already have property and you have wealth right underneath your nose and you don't even see it. And the second thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger said on his talk recently in Australia was number one was have a clear vision. Manyi, are you still there? Manyi, sleeping? I know in Australia it's late.
Yes.
Oh, what was the second thing that Arnie
Yes.
said?
Yeah, I'm here
Yeah, thanks, Manyi.
to think big.
So think big. Thank you, my dear. Think big. Okay. So some of you I already know that you could think much bigger with what you already have. And so the purpose of me to share this on the webinar is for you to actually go to that think big. So have a clear vision. Think big. What was number 3, Manyi?
Don't listen to the naysayers.
Yeah, fabulous. Don't listen to the naysayers who are going to tell you that you can't do it. I'm going to say number 4 because I really love it. You have to work your ass off. And what was the last one, Manyi?
Contribution.
Okay, give back.
Pay it forward.
Absolutely, giving back. Giving back. So those 5 rules which Arnie used his entire life to create success in multiple different businesses. So we've got, just reviewing the chat window here, I can see property is good. Here's a question from Manyi. Do people of different wealth profiles play the property game differently? Like the call is gone on now. It's just over an hour. 1 hour and 8 minutes. Would you like me to answer that question as a group, or would you like me to answer that separately, Manyi, later on? Would anybody else like to know that answer?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just bring up this profile. Okay, great. So that's a great question, Manyi. Not only do people play the property game differently in their different profiles, but property has its own profile cycle. Okay, so let me go through the property profile cycle. Typically, up here in the spring. So I know for a couple of you here are not familiar with this Wealth Dynamic Square, but I will be sharing this and going in greater detail coming up. But in the spring here, is the time when developers are building houses. You know, it's new developments like Melbourne was a couple of years ago. Just everywhere you look, there's development. Now, as the developments are made, the real estate agents over here in the red, the real estate agents are out there selling, and the property prices are increasing, and eventually the affordability factor becomes a little bit of a challenge, and so the government tend to step in. And what do the government tend to do? Anybody know what they do when the property market starts to go a bit out of control?
They raise the interest rates.
Yeah, they put pressure on the banks to raise the interest rate, typically the Reserve Bank in Australia or the Federal Reserve in the US, and they will raise interest rate to take some of the steam out. But in the meantime, as the property cycle is leaving full summer and the interest rates are rising, as we come into the autumn time period where all the backup and all the customer service is going on, and the property prices are starting to stabilize due to the interest rates are stabilized, and as they start to sink, we go into a winter. And into the winter time, which is when property prices are dropping. Now, when property prices are dropping, what's happening to the developments at this stage, the new developments? Anybody want to take a guess? What's happening when interest rates are rising? What do developers do?
Selling.
They stop building. They stop building because the people are not buying houses and the interest rates are going too high for the developers. So they basically stop building, and there's a big building slowdown. Now, when the buildings slow down fully and we're in winter and prices are dropping, what's going on with the rents at this stage when the building stops?
Go up.
The rents go up. So the landlords in winter having a wonderful time. So I can tell you that this cycle works so beautifully. Okay, so in the process, so you imagine, just take those properties that I bought 14 years ago that have been essentially through 2 cycles. So after I bought the properties, we had a massive summer and the property prices went through the roof. And then the interest rates went up. So then the developers stopped building. And then as the prices started to drop down in the winter, there was not enough buildings to house the people. So then rentals go up. In fact, even in Sydney, they have rent auctions where people are fighting to get a particular apartment to pay the rent. So as a landlord, my rent was increasing. So not only was the rent increasing, my cash flow is climbing and the property prices have dropped, which allows me to go in and buy more property at a low price. And after every winter comes what?
Spring.
Spring. To think otherwise, after millions and millions and millions and millions of years, would be foolhardy. And after every winter comes spring. And in the spring, my assets rise in price again. Do you think my rents go down?
No.
No. And so the properties
They
just
stay the
self-cycle
same
and self-cycle. So that's why the United States was such a great opportunity, or still is a great opportunity, because they had a massive winter. And after every winter, there is a spring.
Right.
And has anybody noticed what's been going on in the property prices in the States in the last few months?
Go up again.
Yeah, they're going up again after people have been making 10, 15, 20% return on their investment. So that's the cycle of property. It's a beautiful cycle. And then to answer Munyi's question more specifically, if you are a star, a supporter, or a deal maker, or even indeed a trader, the role for you is the person to go out and talk to the real estate agent, to go and talk to the bank manager, to go and have the conversations with people. We love that stuff. If you're on the right side of the square, you're a people person, you love doing the deals. But I don't know about the rest of you. I'm a supporter profile over there on the right-hand side. You don't recognize. I'm a supporter profile. Do you know what happens when the first bill comes in or the first piece of contract comes in for the property? Do you know what happens to me? No guesses? Is anybody still there?
You freak out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is when the paperwork comes in, I don't want to deal with it. I go immediately from the flame of the candle into the wax. So therefore, I have a personal assistant who takes care of all the paperwork and gets it all set up for the tax department. I never take care of that part of it. Okay. All I do is the people talking to the management company, talking to the real estate agent, talking to the owners of the property, just talking to the people. And the paperwork is taken care of by my Lord PA. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So for you, Munyi, being a Lord profile, okay, maybe your sister Connie, who's definitely a people person from what I can see, she goes out and does all the talking, chit-chat, and all the rest of it, and you take care of what lords love to take care of, which is the cash flow. How does that sound to you?
Very good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Does that sound like it works? Or let me ask you: would you like to be the person going out and talking to the real estate agents and the bank manager and having a cup of tea and trying to work a deal? Would you prefer to do that?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so I rest my case. Okay, and you've got your sister is a perfect team member, and you can both work together to create great property. So it's pretty exciting, isn't it? And this is where, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we can go in. But here's what it'll take. And it doesn't take that much, because once you buy a property, let's take a guess. Jan, no, I don't want to use Jan. Who's here's got an investment property? Sandra. Oh, Vanetta. Vanetta, are you there? Hey, Vanetta, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, hello, my dear. How are you tonight?
I'm here, Les. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, that's Sandra. That's Sandra.
Good. Yes.
Okay, Sandra's great. And Vanetta's there somewhere there too. But you've got an investment property, Sandra.
We do.
Yeah. How much effort does that take
And
to look after?
I just look. It's been well, it was challenging for a while,
Was
but I
it?
think we finally educated here.
Okay.
And,
Sorry, do you have a
and then we
manager?
don't do anything.
Do you have a management person?
No, we just do, and then we had issues,
Oh, you did.
and we
Okay.
ended up taking it over ourselves. And
Okay,
now
great.
it's really good.
So
She's
now you
great.
manage it yourself?
Yes.
Okay. That's not something, that's a little bit more hands-on for me. I haven't, I love to use a management team to take care of all of that, because I don't do anything with my properties. In fact, many of my properties I've never even seen, never been in the location. So, but okay, so you're doing it yourself. That may not be something I would necessarily recommend, particularly when you start to grow a portfolio
No,
of three,
we
four,
did
five.
for a few years.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
maybe
for a
just
few years we had someone, and that someone was really good, so we didn't have to do anything.
oh,
So this has
fantastic.
just been the last year or so.
Fantastic. Okay, that's great. So that's so I guess what I'm trying to say there. Oh, but you know what? You bring up a very good point, Sandra. By the way, everybody, do you think any of your investments will ever be smooth sailing all the time?
No.
No.
No, I haven't had one. I haven't had one investment that's been smooth sailing all the time. There's something comes through. On my properties, I would say I get a challenge once every 10 years. So I've been pretty lucky. But with virtually, most investments, something's going to happen that's going to test you, right? That's going to put something in. But each of them can, I can't say that. But it's rare to have something that's not going to have something happen. But once every 10 years or a couple of times every 10 years is something I can live with if it keeps pulling in plenty of money. And on the final note I'd like to say is that last year, to give an example, actually not last year's not a good example, because I took my eye off the ball with all my coaching. I did pay some tax last year, but that's my fault. And the year before, I earned a six-figure income from my properties in Australia. Anybody know how much tax I paid on my six-figure income?
0.
Yeah, that's a leading question. 0. Okay, so remember, if you went to school and they told you the full story, that if you went and got a job, you would pay 30 or 40 or 50% tax on your income. If you became a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant and opened up your own business, depending which country, and this might make a difference, you may have to pay 30, 40, 50% on tax on your income, or more. In the United States, can be 60% tax on your income. If you open up your own business, you only pay tax on the profit, which makes it around about 20% or less in some countries. And if you invest properly and you pay 0% tax, which quadrant would you choose?
The I quadrant.
Yeah, but did they tell you that at school?
No.
No, they don't tell you that at school. So it's such a lovely thing to be able to create, but it has to be done the right way. Okay. So enough of me. I've talked on 20 minutes longer than I expected. So, so thank you everybody for coming. I'm going to upload most of the recording on the website. I missed the first 15 minutes, unfortunately. But I hope you got some value out of it. I hope you're excited about. Now we're going to go into the content and see why it's so important to get that passive income so you can really live your dream. So thank you very much.
Yes.
And any
Thank you. Thank you, Liz.
feedback, bouquets, brickbats, anything, gratefully accepted. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Manyi.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jan. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Les. It was awesome. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Manyi. Thanks, Anita, Vanetta, David. Thank you, Matt. Now, I've got to figure out how to get this recording of screen.